Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Two months ago today, we were adjusting to the news that we had voted to leave the EU. It was not the decision that business in general wanted. Indeed, the Leave campaign tried to turn big business support for Remain into an argument for getting out. Business, meanwhile, warned of some awful consequences if we left. Well, among the big beasts of the British business landscape is Sir Martin Sorrell, Chief Executive of WPP, the world's biggest advertising and communications company. Their results released today, by the way, mainly driven by the rest of the world, not the UK, but they were up. And even the UK, post-Brexit, seemed to have perked up. Sir Martin is with me.
So good evening.
Not so bad then.
Big beast now.
Yeah, you're a big beast.
All right.
Not so bad then. I mean, you were exaggerating when you said Brexit.
No, we saw, to be fair, we're getting mixed signals. April to June, we saw some softening in the UK, which we attribute to the pre-Brexit concerns. Yeah. July, 1 month, was better. We saw a little bit of a perking up in the UK. But having said that, we had the Bank of England correction on interest rates to try and correct the concern about the economy. And of course, the pound devalued quite substantially from 150 to the dollar to 130, and against the euro. And that gives us a huge tailwind, certainly in foreign currency, 13 to 14% in the second half of this year, and overall about 7
So your profits will go up as a result of the collapse, not the collapse, the fall in the pound, because you earn stuff in dollars and it's worth more.
Yeah, but that's because we're clever enough to do about 84%, 86% of our business, about 14% of the UK and 86% out of it. Now, that's not something that I really want to profit, or we really want to profit from, is the weakness of the pound. It basically is the country's stock price, is another way of putting it, and it doesn't all go well unless we really get our act together and act like the Germans. I mean, the Germans managed to export extremely effectively with the euro even strengthening historically, although it's weakened a bit against some currencies, but not against the pound. So it's really a question of behaving like the Germans.
What do you want to happen now? Because there's a sort of dilemma about quick business gets certainty.
There's a massive contradiction
and take a long time and work it out. You know,
massive contradiction. We want certainty. I think generally, I can't speak for everybody, but I think the general tenor is wanting certainty, a quick fix, and let's get on with our lives.
But you don't want a botch. I mean, come on, that's the last thing you want.
But the botch, well, the problem is the government wants to lengthen the process. I mean, I've been away. I've been in the US for 3 or 4 weeks, but reading the newspapers digitally, reading the newspapers, you read one weekend, we're not going to trigger Article 50 until the end of 2017, denied by Downing Street. The next weekend, it's going to be April that we trigger Article 50, denied by Downing Street. Will it end up somewhere between April and December?
They don't know either, because they're thinking about it. They're thinking about it.
Absolutely right. So it's a really difficult situation.
But if I told you that there was more chance of it never happening if we slowed everything down, that would be a real dilemma for you, because you would really like somehow for the thing to be reversed.
We are on the horns of a dilemma. You're absolutely right. I hope we don't fall through the horns. But having said that, I mean, my personal hope is that the process is so complicated and the results, frankly, are tepid over the 2-year period, because it can take 2 years from triggering Article 50 at least. Then we have to get the 20 of the 27 member states to approve the terms of the deal. So we're going to end up in front of the election. Owen Smith's comments this morning are quite interesting in that context, that we'll end up just before the election in 2020 with the terms agreed. The economy, question whether it'll do better, probably going to have a tough time, because we're trying to sort out all these trade treaties, which we outsourced. Right. We outsourced that capability to Brussels. I remember one civil servant telling me before the vote it would take 10 years to sort out these trade negotiations. And maybe the Prime Minister, Theresa May, will say before the election, we need another referendum to confirm. You know, you voted in 2016, 52-48.
Now you've seen the deal.
Now you've seen the deal. Life is not as good as we thought it was going to be. And
now, look, here's the really crucial thing, though, for folks like you, which was that actually the Leave campaign did manage to turn big business into a disadvantage.
Yes.
So basically, the government had thought the support of big business is kind of going to scare people.
Well, it's not dissimilar to what we've seen on the left wing of Bernie Sanders in populism in America and the right wing with Donald Trump. And in lots of other, I mean, the five-star movement in Italy, what we've seen in Spain, what we've seen in Greece, the rise of populism, which includes the rise against, you know, the factors and the institutions.
But do you ever ask yourself,
yeah,
and you're the best paid person in Britain, basically, do you ever ask yourself,
on the basis of performance,
the basis of performance, let's not go into, we always
right,
talk about, have you ever said to yourself, have I got something to answer for here? Is it partly that we didn't share the proceeds of growth, that we didn't listen to the parts of the country that haven't kept up with the macchiato-sipping advertisers in London?
I take a little bit of exception to that. We started in 1985. I'm talking about WPP now. I can't talk for everybody else. We started in 1985 with 2 people in a room. We now have 200,000 people directly or indirectly employed in the company in 113 countries. If the average dependency in the family is 3 to 4 people, we're talking about 600 to 800,000 people. I'm very proud of the fact that 600 to 800,000 people rely for their livelihood on WPP. Long may it last, long may it increase. In the UK, we've gone up from 14,000 people to 18,000 people in the last 4 or 5 years, when the government and other people have been worried about employment. So the service sector, of which we are a crucial part, I would argue, have been very successful in generating employment. So we have, in that sense, shared it. The rewards for the company are based on performance. We went from £1 million capitalisation to over £22 billion pounds today, $30 billion, 50% bigger than any other competitor in our sector.
Mr. Martin, thank you very much indeed. Well, you can go back to great divisions of the past in this part of the world. The 15th century, Lancastrians versus Yorkists. 16th century, Protestants versus Catholics. 17th century, Royalists versus Roundheads. 19th century, Free Traders versus Corn Law supporters. The EU debate has felt like the 21st century equivalent. No civil war over it as yet, but are we getting over our national schism? Katie Razzle has been to Stoke, actually to 2 Stokes, to talk to those on either side who are out of sync with their neighbours or colleagues.
What's it like to be squeezed out of the political debate in the place you call home? To be out of kilter with most of the people you meet? On referendum day in Stoke-on-Trent, nearly 70% of voters wanted out of the EU. It's one of many parts of Britain that voted overwhelmingly for one side or the other. But in all those places, there were some who formed a different view.
I found it very difficult coming to work because I was in tears. I felt sick. I felt like I'd woken up to a world I didn't know or understand.
Based in one of Britain's last working Victorian potteries, Lisa Slynn specialises in ceramics, many of which are inspired by Europe in the 18th and 19th centuries.
On the actual day of the referendum, we had a small discussion around here, and I was basically the only Remainer. It's quite an incredible feeling, really, being that much of a minority somewhere. To turn around and say that we want to operate in isolation, that is not my view of myself as a European, it's not how I see my country. My feeling about why people voted to leave here is overwhelmingly to do with immigration.
How do you feel about that?
It makes me feel very sad. I am marrying an immigrant myself in a couple of weeks' time. People didn't want to listen to anybody. People were so entrenched in their gut feelings and point of views that they didn't listen to experts anymore.
There's happiness around you that you can't share in.
No, I can't share in it at all, no, because I feel like I have this knowledge of doom, really, and it's incredibly depressing.
A 150 miles south of Stoke-on-Trent is Stoke Newington. In the heart of London's Hackney, this is a place of Remainers, somewhere Lisa might feel at home. Hackney overwhelmingly supported Britain staying in the EU. But even here, some voted against the status quo.
I am aware of being in a huge minority and have been ever since I realised how I was going to vote.
Out is not the cool choice in Stoke Newington.
No, it isn't, but I've never been cool, so...
If there are prejudices about people who voted Leave, Michael Keeble surely bucks them. He's a gay former restaurant manager with an open world view.
I absolutely love Europe. I don't like the EU at all. A lot of people who I don't know well, who I've met socially, have said, you know, what?
And that's because they think of you as the kind of
They
person
perceive
who would vote
me
Remain.
to be a person who would vote Remain because they see me as someone who's literate, who can show an argument, and therefore they think that, well, you know, what's this person who can string two words together doing voting out? And well, I think there are a lot of people who can string two words together who voted out. I had a conversation with a young waiter. He was patently a Remainer and had nothing but disdain to say, well, he's now going to find out. But I suspect he knew by the end of our conversation, but I still button my lip.
What are you worried about people thinking?
The primary thing is racism.
You're worried people will think you're a racist for voting out?
Yeah. And of course, my whole life experience is so contrary. I've been blessed by the people I've met from Europe and all over the world. And they make our country so incredibly diverse. And it saddens me so much that people think automatically that we are racist because we believe in the end of the EU. I do feel that the sadness of a huge number of Londoners doesn't let them think about the possibilities that we all have now.
We brought our Remain voter from Stoke-on-Trent to meet our Stoke Newington outer.
Hello.
Hi.
Oh, hello, Michael.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet
Very
you.
nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Could these Brexit minorities find any common ground?
I hope it is nice to meet each other.
It is, yes.
I would love to share your wonderful view of the future and your very optimistic view, and that you feel you've been liberated, that this country's been liberated. Unfortunately, my gut instinct tells me that it's only going to get worse for this country.
For me, it's just a no-brainer that we can deal with the world rather than just Europe, which has become increasingly undemocratic. What I hate is the fact that my identity can be framed with either bigoted right-wing...
Absolutely, yeah.
Because of your vote.
Because of my vote.
Every single person that I have spoken to, who I have asked for facts around why they voted to leave, the first thing they say is about immigration. They do not talk about the economics.
Money has no relevance to me, I don't have any. I would like to look at it not through race, not through immigration, not through money, but through people. And the people who enrich our society, our borders are open. The fact you might have to jump a few hoops to go through them, I don't think is wrong.
I think a lot of people are bewildered now. I think talking to people yesterday, I went back in to speak to some people, and they're saying, well, we never thought it was really going to happen and we can't believe it. Quite a few people said, I wish I hadn't voted to leave now.
That seems to be the narrative, doesn't it? That people on the outside were misled and that they weren't really informed, and that therefore they made the wrong choice.
Well, I don't think it's right at all to say about anyone's choice that it is the wrong choice. I'm not an ogre, you're not an ogre. No. We just happen to have contrary views, and that those are as valid as each other's.
He's made me feel a lot more reassured about people who very seriously thought about this life-changing decision, in my opinion. He's very measured, he's very positive, he is a great believer in humanity, and I feel that I can relate to him on many different levels.
Just one constructive conversation out of thousands that will need to happen to heal the Brexit divide.